High School of the Dead. That name gives me a feeling of nostalgia and cringe at the same time. 11 years after its release makes me feel old. I still remember when this anime was super popular and everyone was wearing t-shirts with the logo, cosplaying at anime conventions, and yeah, it was a terrible moment to be alive. Jokes aside, High School of the Dead really brings me back, despite not being a very good show. High School of the Dead was certainly popular and influential during its peak. It had everything a teenager wanted: hot chicks, guns, blood, zombies, you name it. By today's standards, the show is not good, to say the least. If this was released nowadays, it would probably flop and be ignored like so many generic and forgettable shows. It is certainly a relic from its time and represents nicely that time period of 2010.
You fucking faggot! I don't fucking have Uno, motherfucker!
For that reason, we wanted to look back in time and understand the reasons on how such a show got so popular, despite its many flaws and content.
Now, to answer the big question. How was this thing such a hit? Well, the show got everything right. It was released during the right time frame, had the right contents, and had a clear target audience. If we get a checklist, you can see that High School of the Dead had everything we wanted as young, horny gamers. Again, keep in mind that a year before its airing, Resident Evil 5 was released, aka the best-selling Resident Evil game, not the game with limited resources and a horror atmosphere. We're talking about this Resident Evil. The zombie genre was at its peak. Resident Evil 4 and 5, Dead Rising, Left 4 Dead, and The Walking Dead were awfully popular during the time surrounding High School of the Dead, thus having a clear demographic to sell the product and make it a blast. Being completely honest, there's not much to talk about this series as a whole. It's mostly a generic zombie apocalypse story, but it should still be handled properly for the sake of this discussion. Our protagonist is Takashi Komuro, a second-year student that is presented to us as a laid-back and kind of a slacker, that we see turn more serious in dire situations. He leads a group consisting of Rei Miyamoto, his childhood crush to whom he couldn't confess his feeling in time, Saeko Tsujima, the second love interest of the protagonist, and she studied the blade, Saya Takagi, a childhood friend who acts as the brains of the group, Kota Hirano, a classmate and gun expert, and Shizuka Marikawa, the clumsy school nurse and the team's medical professional. The plot takes us across the city, exploring how the zombie catastrophe has affected different areas and groups of people. I wish there was more to talk about the plot or the characters, but that's it. We don't see interesting development in the characters, and the story doesn't deviate much from what you would expect based on the title. Except for the fact that, for it being High School of the Dead, the school setting lasts a whole 2 episodes. Visually, there's nothing to complain about. The scenes flow well between each other, and there's some good action shots, even if some are a little over the top. But it being animated by Madhouse, this quality was to be expected. In regards to the soundtrack, upon listening to it by myself, I found that there were some good tracks in there, all fitting the atmosphere of the story. The problem being that I couldn't for the love of God remember when they were actually used. Nothing really memorable. The series was a commercial success, as we mentioned previously, with the manga being a bestseller both in and out of its home country. And almost anyone who watched anime during the 2010s has probably seen it, or at least heard of it. As it's often the case, said popularity started fading slowly, with newer series taking its spot in the public consciousness, once better aligned to current trends. It still begs the question, what happened to Season 2? Did the manga ever finish? Well, we just have to search a little bit to uncover this mystery. Let's start by addressing the hiatus in the manga's runtime. Starting its run in 2006, it first went on hiatus from 2008 to 2010, only to then disappear from print for 2 years in 2011, getting its 30th chapter in 2013. The final destiny of the series was revealed in 2017, being left unfinished after the author's death in March of that year. This situation is what probably caused the second season of the series to never be made, despite it having around 10 more chapters of content. Who knows how far the series would have gone if it weren't for the sickness that took away Daisuke Sato. It wouldn't be the first mildly generic series to hook a whole generation. But what remains now is but a shadow of what once was. The most relevance the series has gotten lately is Netflix getting the streaming rights for the anime, and the remake of the original opening. There's a group of fans working on reviving the manga, but there's nothing concrete yet, so don't get your hopes up.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Wow, what a nostalgia trip. I honestly thought that rewatching it nowadays will be extremely painful, but honestly I had a great time with the show again, albeit for different reasons. I used to believe that the show was pretty much the second coming of Jesus, but now I just laugh at it and go with the flow. To be honest, I have a soft spot for this anime, but I have to admit that it is bad, or at least not very good. And that's part of its charm. Looking back, it is clear why we all love the anime despite its odd plot.
Dude, I wanna jerk off!
We as kids used to love everything we saw. Now, try to rewatch some questionable shows from your youth and I assure you, a part of your soul is going to die. And a few brain cells in the process, by the way. Other not-so-great shows face similar situations, in which they got popular for pretty much a miracle, but we might cover them in a different occasion. For now, Highschool of the Dead will be a gem of its time period, and we can all cringe for loving such a piece of art. Except if you're in China, because it's banned there.